Hare Krishna, welcome. So today we will cover three chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We will speak about the passing away of Bhismadeva, about Krishna leaving Hastinapura, going to Dwarka, and Krishna arriving in Dwarka, and the reception of the devotees there, after a long time without Krishna. So let's start with the passing away of Bhismadeva. So, Bhismadeva, he was defeated by Arjuna and Shrikandi during the 10th day of the Battle of Kuruksetra, right? This we can read on the Mahabharata. So, dozens and dozens of arrows transpassed his body. And he landed in such a way that the arrows, they supported the weight of his body, and he didn't touch the ground, right? So he was like lying on a bed of arrows. That's how it's described. And later he asked Arjuna to give him a pillow. And Arjuna, understanding his intention, he used three arrows to make like a support for his head, right? So he could be a little bit more comfortable. So, of course, a regular person, right, will die instantly, right, in this situation, right? So, like how a person can live after having, being his body transpassed by, so many arrows, like impossible. But because Bhismadeva, he had the blessing that he would not die until the time that he had chosen, he remained alive and conscious even in this situation. He didn't die immediately. So he was waiting for an auspicious moment to leave his body. So it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita that a yogi should leave his body during the months that the sun travels in the northern hemisphere, right? So Bhismadeva, he was patiently waiting for the right period of time to leave his body. So he stayed like several weeks or maybe months in this situation waiting. So the news that the great Bhismadeva was preparing to leave his body quickly spread, right? And so many great sages and other important personalities from different parts of the world, they came to pay him respects, including even Vyasadeva and Sukadeva Goswami. And this is mentioned on Srimad Bhagavatam 195. It says there that, quote, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis amongst the demigods, brahmanas, and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. So actually, not even just people from this planet, but even people from higher planets, they appeared there to see Bhismadeva. So chronologically speaking, these events, they happened around the time of the birth of Pariksit Maharaja. So this was, of course, many years before Sukadeva Goswami spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam, right, to the king. So at the end of the 18th chapter, Maharaja Yudhisthira, he was very mortified by the results of the battle of Kuruksetra, right, that we studied last session. So he was completely shocked by the carnage, right, and he was feeling the karmic repercussions of it. And Krishna himself, he tried to give him instructions about it. But the lamentation of Yudhisthira persisted, right? So one cold question, how is it so that, Krishna is, of course, the ultimate authority. So how is that Yudhisthira was not able to accept the words of Krishna? He continued lamenting, even after Krishna tried to instruct him, right? And the answer is that there was a higher plan. Krishna wanted to pay a visit to Bhismadeva and be with him at the crucial moment when he was leaving this world. So he inspired Yudhisthira from inside the heart to remain in this lamenting condition. So Krishna could bring him to Bhismadeva. So then the Pandavas traveled from Hastinapura to Kuruksetra, right? Royal procession, elephants, and so on. And Srila Prabhupada explains this in detail in his purport to 193. So, quote, Prabhupada says that Lord Sri Krishna wanted the Pandavas to be present before Bhismadeva in the most aristocratic order, so that he might be pleased to see them happy at the time of his death. Kuvera is the richest of all the demigods. And herein, King Yudhisthira appeared to be like him, Kuvera. For the procession along with Sri Krishna was quite appropriate to the royalty of King Yudhisthira, right? Jai. So, seeing Bhishmadeva, all the Pandavas they offered him obeisance, right? Of course, because he was so senior. And a significant detail here is that although Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he also offered obeisances to Bhismadeva, following the example of the king. Why? Because just as he explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna always follows religious principles. Why? To give example to us. So by this act, Krishna shows to us that no matter how exalted a person is, he should not fail to offer respect to seniors. Right? Because even Krishna does that. Krishna is God. Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Still, he does that. So what is the excuse for anyone else to not do it, right? So with the appearance of Krishna in the scene, even more great personalities joined the assembly, like Kasyapa, Angirasa, many disciples of them, and no, many great sages. So it's described that Bhismadeva was shining on the middle of this great assembly, just like a demigod who had fallen from the sky, right? So, and of course, due to his situation, right, in the bed of arrows and everything else, Bhishmadeva was not capable of offering then a proper reception. But he still satisfied then with sweet words, smiles, and so on. So in this way, all the great personalities who had come to see him, they were fully satisfied with his welcome, right? And Prabhupada mentions that one can perform one's duty by physical work, by mind, by words, and he knew well how to utilize them in the proper place. And therefore, there was no difficulty for him, like Bhishmadeva, meaning, to receive them, although physically unfit, right? That's what Prabhupada says, his quote. So Bhishmadeva was also able to duly worship Krishna by the same process, right? Just by words and so on. So it's very difficult for us to conceive, right, to understand how emotional was the meeting of Bhishmadeva, Krishna, and the Pandavas. Like it's described that the Pandavas they sat silently, like overwhelmed by the feelings of affection for their grandfather. And at the same time, Bhishmadeva, he shed tears of love, like seeing the Pandavas after all the tribulations that they had passed. So it was a very, very emotional meeting, right? And he also was so happy to see that the Pandavas they were well situated after all of this. And then there is a quote here that's 1912. So, quote, Bhishmadeva said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you, good souls, suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations. Yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion," right? Unquote. So, with these words, Bhishmadeva emphasized that the events of the battle of Kuruksetra were not the fault of the Pandavas, right? That was the problem. Yudhisthira was thinking that, oh, it's all my fault. Bhishmadeva said, no, the Pandavas, they were the victims of injustice, and the battle was just the result of a superior arrangement to correct this injustice, right? So, as Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport, right, quote, Maharaja Yudhisthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the battle of Kuruksetra. Bhismadeva could understand this, and therefore he spoke first of the terrible sufferings of Maharaja Yudhisthira. He was put into difficulty by injustice only, and the battle of Kuruksetra was fought just to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he should not regret the great massacre. He wanted to point out particularly that they were always protected by the Brahmanas, the Lord, and religious principles. And as long as they were protected by these three important items, there was no cause of disappointment. Thus, Bhismadeva encouraged Maharaja Yudhisthira to dissipate his despondency. As long as a person is in full cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency. However, trying the circumstances of life are like maybe. And Bhismadeva, as one of the authorities in the line, wanted to impress this point upon the Pandavas, right? Unquote. So that's Prabhupada speaking. And then there is a question that may appear, right? That like being the Pandavas, like that's a very common question. Many people will ask this question that like the Pandavas, they were pure devotees of Krishna, right? So being pure devotees, how could they suffer so many difficulties, right? Why, how is that? Because was Krishna not supposed to protect his devotees, right? So even if the Pandavas, so if even the Pandavas who were personal associates of the Lord passed through so many tribulations, then what is the hope for us, right? So someone could ask like this. So, and this is something that Bhismadeva also speaks. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 1, 9, 15, 16. Okay, quote. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhisthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Bhima, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all the lords, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. O king, no one can know the plan of the Lord, Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered, right? Unquote. So this is Bhismadeva speaking about this. So certainly the difficulties that the Pandavas they passed through, they were not caused by past sinful actions, right? It was not karma. Because they didn't have any results of previous karma to suffer or enjoy, because they are pure devotees, right? Because of the level of their devotional service. So Bhismadeva explains that all happened due to the influence of time, right? And due to the influence of the Lord, right? So Srila Prabhupada mentions that, like this is a quote from Prabhupada. This is from Purport on 1917. Quote, the popular saying is that a housewife teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter. Similarly, the Lord teaches the word by teaching the devotee. So the devotee does not have to learn anything new from the Lord, because the Lord teaches the sincere devotee always from within. Whenever, therefore, a show is made to teach the devotee, as in the cases of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, it is for teaching the less intelligent man. So see, the point is that Krishna uses his pure devotees to teach others, to teach the conditioned souls, right? To teach us. Like the example of the mother-in-law teaches the daughter, the mother teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter, right? So she corrects the daughter, and then the daughter-in-law also hears and understands that she also shouldn't do like that, right? So Krishna wanted to use the Pandavas as an example of how determined one must be on the path of virtue, right? Not deviating from religious and devotional principles, even when facing the greatest calamities. And how, by following this path, one eventually becomes victorious, right? Because no common person could survive the tests that the Pandavas went through, right? Therefore, just as only an advanced student can pass, the hardest exams, right? The role of passing through so many difficulties and giving this example had to be performed by the greatest devotees, and these were the Pandavas, right? So Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purport to 1916, right? Quote, the sufferings of the Pandavas were never due to their past deeds. The Lord had to execute the plan of establishing the kingdom of virtue, and therefore his own devotees suffered temporarily in order to establish the conquest of virtue. Bhismadeva was certainly satisfied by seeing the triumph of virtue, and he was glad to see King Yudhisthira on the throne, although he himself fought against him, right? So interesting, right? Prabhupada explains this point. And there are more meanings here, okay? That's one meaning. Krishna used the Pandavas to give the example, teach us. There is another meaning, is that anyone who is living the material world, like even devotees or even pure devotees, has to go through difficulties. And this is not necessarily because of karma. This is simply because the nature of this world. That's how it works. Just as we have to face difficulties and discomfort when we are traveling, right? It's not possible to be entirely comfortable in this world simply because this is not our home. That's the reason. Even Devaki, the mother of Krishna, she suffered so many difficulties, right? So the point about Krishna consciousness is not to live a peaceful life free of difficulties, but to learn gradually to surrender to Krishna in the course of such difficulties, right? So, although a devotee may face difficulties in the normal course of life, his ultimate success is guaranteed. Uh, and this is something that Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita. Name bhakta pranasyati. He says that my devotee never perishes. So, okay, that's another meaning. There is another one, even higher. And this is that the Lord sometimes puts his pure devotees into difficulties to bring them even closer to him. So the difficulties are thus a tool to increase the reciprocation of transcendental feelings between the Lord and his devotees, right? And this is something that is also explained in the purport, that tribulations imposed upon the devotees by the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord says, I put my devotees into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes more purified in exchanging transcendental bhava with me. Right? Placing the devotee into material troubles means delivering him from the illusory material reactions. The material reactions are based on reciprocation of material enjoyment, which depends mainly on material resources. Therefore, when material resources are withdrawn by the Lord, the devotee is 100% attracted toward the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Thus, the Lord snatches, right, the fallen soul from the mere of material existence, right? The Lord saves him. So tribulations offered by the Lord to his devotees are different from the tribulations resulting from vicious actions, like results of karma. And that's a point, very interesting point, right? That Prabhupada makes on 1919 on his purport, right? So see, that's yet another meaning, right? This is not due to karma. And this is just the Lord trying to increase the love and the meditation of his pure devotee on himself, increase the love of his devotee, right? So this is even higher. So it's easy to Krishna, it's easy for Krishna, right, to give material facilities or even impersonal liberation for anyone who asks it, right? That's very easy for Krishna. So when a neophyte, a devotee, worships the Lord, asking for material opulence, the Lord often just satisfies his desire. He just gives whatever he's asking. However, when the Lord is truly merciful to a devotee, he gives this devotee experiences that will help him come close to him, right? He tries to bring this devotee back to Godhead. And this is exactly the mercy of the devotee. Giving material opulences, this is not mercy. This is more like indifference. Mercy is when the devotee, when Krishna tries to bring the devotee back to Godhead, right? And for this, often he has to give difficulty experiences, right? So when a neophyte devotee experiences, material difficulties, these are often due to the results of his past karma, right? Because a neophyte still has karma, so it's no wonder that sometimes there are difficulties. And often these become obstacles, right, to his spiritual practice. And that's why the spiritual master, he takes away the results of the past karma from the disciple at the moment of initiation, right? To help, no, to protect his disciple from this. But in the case of a sincere devotee who gets the special mercy of the Lord, right? Then these so-called material difficulties, they are directly sent by the Lord. And the result is that they make the devotee fully surrender to the Lord and attain pure devotional service to Him. So it's completely different, right? So another question one could ask is how Bhismadeva could have fought on the side of Duryodhana, right? Instead of supporting the Pandavas, right? That's another interesting question. And Prabhupada also explains that this was also the arrangement of the Lord. So Prabhupada says here that even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle of Kuruksetra because the Lord wanted to show that vice cannot conquer virtue. So regardless of who tries to execute it, Bhismadeva was a great devotee of the Lord, but he chose to fight against the Pandavas by the will of the Lord, because the Lord wanted to show that a fighter like Bhishma cannot win on the wrong side, right? So interesting, right? So Bhishma on the side of Duryodhana actually was also an arrangement of the Lord, because he was the most powerful kshatriya. And Krishna wanted to use this as an example that even Bhismadeva, the powerful Bhismadeva, who even Parashurama couldn't defeat, he could not win the battle by fighting on the wrong side, right? That's interesting. So the next question is about what should Maharaja Yudhisthira do now that the battle is concluded, like? So because the whole passage started because Krishna wanted to help him to find a solution to this question, right? What to do now? And this was answered by Bhismadeva on the next verse. So, quote, this is Bhismadeva speaking. O best among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhisthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and, my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. Right? So you see that Bhishmadeva answers this question telling Yudhisthira that you should become the king. Don't be mental, right? You need to protect everyone in the kingdom. You need to uphold the principles of Dharma. So don't lament. Do your duty, right? That was the conclusion of Bhishmadeva. And the purport by Prabhupada for this verse, Prabhupada mentions that, quote, the Pandavas were advised by Bhismadeva to accept the responsibility of administration without hesitation. The poor subjects were without protection due to the battle of Kuruksetra, and they were awaiting the assumption of power by Maharaja Yudhisthira. A pure devotee of the Lord accepts tribulations as favors from the Lord. Since the Lord is absolute, There is no mundane difference between the two, right? Unquote. So once Srila Prabhupada commented that we may have different plans, right? That's normal. But Krishna has his own plan. And we should dovetail our plans, right? We should connect, align our plans with Krishna's transcendental plan, right? Because material life means exactly trying to act independently, while spiritual life means dovetailing, right? Our actions and desires with the desires of Krishna, right? So that's a very important point. So the Lord desires that all souls can eventually go back to Him, right? Back to Godhead. That's the idea. And for these ends, not only the Lord comes personally, but He sends His pure devotees to teach us the proper way to act, right? So that we can go back to Godhead. And the Pandavas, they never left the path of virtue, right? The path of Dharma, even while they were going through so many tribulations. And now, after being reinstated to the throne, right? After becoming the king again, Maharaja Yudhisthira, he had the duty of properly taking care of the kingdom and protecting the people, right? That was the idea. So Maharaja Yudhisthira, he didn't have any desire to sit on the throne, right? He didn't want it really to become the king. And that's precisely what made him the most qualified person to the job, right? That's exactly the point. Because usually materialistic people, they are attracted to positions of leadership, but when they get there, they just exploit the situation for their purposes, right? But so they don't really act for the benefit of the people. So only a sincere devotee uh, who rules not out of personal ambition, but as a service to the Lord, he can be a proper ruler. He can be a good ruler, right? Following the footsteps of Maharaja Yudhisthira. So that's an interesting point, right? A good leader is the one who doesn't want to be a leader. He accepts it just as a service. Okay, so now there is a description of Krishna's glories, and that's also part of the instructions of Bhismadeva. So, having explained the point about the sufferings of the Pandavas and giving instructions to Maharaja Yudhisthira on what to do next, Bhismadeva he continues by describing some of the glories of Krishna. So Bhismadeva says that this Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he's moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us, and he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. O King, Lord Shiva, Narada, the sage amongst the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. O King, that personality whom, out of ignorance only, you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he's present in everyone's heart. He's equal he's equally kind to everyone, and he's free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety, material defects, right? He is equibalanced. Okay, there is more. We are still inside the same quote. Yet, despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life. For I am his unflinching servitor, right? Because Bhismadeva is the servant of Krishna. Krishna came when he's leaving his body. Okay, continuing the quote. So the personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body. May my Lord, who is the four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling, kindly await uh, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body, right? So this is Bhagavatam 1:9, 18 to 24. So okay, so Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead, right? He's the first Narayana. He's the source of all incarnations, right? We studied that all the incarnations inside this universe, they come from Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Kshirodakashayi Vishnu comes from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who comes from Mahavishnu, and so on and so forth. And these go all the way to Krishna, right? So Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And this is clearly, very clearly shown in the pastime of Lord Brahma stealing the cowherd boys and calves that is described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Because there, Krishna expanded himself into innumerable Vishnu forms, right? Taking the forms of all the boys and calves that Brahma had stolen, and he just continued playing with his pastimes as if, nothing had happened. So when Lord Brahma returned after 1 year, Krishna revealed that each of these Vishnu forms had his own universe, right? Complete with his own Brahma and Shiva and everything else. So all these Vishnu forms and their respectful universes, they were situated around Krishna, right? So this is very amazing, right? So the same Krishna played the role of a subordinate to the Pandavas, serving as a messenger to Maharaja Yudhisthira, as a chariot driver to Arjuna, and so on, right? So how amazing it is, right? This Krishna, who is so powerful that he can show to Lord Brahma so many Vishnus and their respective universes around him, thousands and thousands, he was acting as a servant to the Pandavas. How is that? Right? And so the point is that out of his causeless mercy and love for his pure devotees, Krishna can play any role, right? And perform any kind of service or activities. But this doesn't change his position as the supreme, right? So in this material world, we have this distinction between superior and inferior and so on, right? Rich and poor and all these things. And this is due to false ego, right? The identification with the body. So if I am an important if an important person becomes a street sweeper, for example, his reputation will be put into question, right? However, Krishna is free from false ego, and he's free from any kind of material conception. And in this way, he's free to enact pastimes with his pure devotees in any way he wants. He's free, right? He's independent. So all his activities are completely transcendental and equally pure, right? That's the point. So in his purport, Prabhupada makes the point that being dependent on the Supreme Lord is the natural position of the soul. And conversely, right, on the opposite, when we consider ourselves independent from the Lord, then we fall down into material existence. And the root of this material existence is false ego, right? So that's the whole point. So you see, this false ego that, oh, I'm so important, I can't do service to anyone. That's the root of material existence. So there is a quote here, quote, having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's protector, friend, and master is the natural condition of eternal life. A living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty, of the Lord, that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. The opposite tendency is the cause of a fall down, right? When we don't want to depend on Krishna. The living entity has this tendency of falling down by dint of misidentifying himself as fully independent to lord it over the material world. The root cause of all troubles is there in false egotism, right? See, false ego is the root cause of all our problems, right? So, okay, that's the end of the quote. So Bhismadeva, he has a chivalrous relationship with Krishna, right? So this was shown during the battle of Kuruksetra, when he decided to make the Lord pick weapons and fight with him. So now, in the final part of his life, Bhismadeva is preparing to leave his body in the most auspicious moment, right? In the presence of Krishna and his pure devotees, and so on, presence of great sages and everything. So, although Bhismadeva, he could continue living if he wanted, right? If he wanted, he could be still alive, right? But do you think it would be good? Do you think he would be happy, living in Kali Yuga with us? Probably not, right? So he decided to abandon his body at these auspicious moments, right? And go back to Godhead, because that was the perfect moment. Like all the great sages, the pure devotees, Krishna was there. So this show us that a very long life is not very important, right? What is essential is to leave our bodies in a situation where we are surrendered by devotees and we can remember Krishna, because this brings us to eternal life, right? So a long life in this material world is not very desirable. What is desirable is to leave our bodies in a situation where we can go back to Godhead, right? So as Srila Prabhupada mentions, the only desire that a pure devotee entertains, that he has, is that he may always be in rapt attention, right? Complete concentration, with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, regardless, right? Regardless of the situation. And Bhismadeva wanted this much only, that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord and that he pass away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee, right? To leave his body thinking on Krishna, right? And now we have the last instructions of Bhismadeva. You see that this passing away of Bhismadeva is a very important chapter in this first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. There are so many instructions here, so many interesting realizations here. So, okay, so the last instructions of Bhismadeva. So before passing away, Bhismadeva, he gave extensive, very, very extensive instructions to Maharaja Yudhisthira about occupational duties and other topics. And these discussions, they are described in the Bhishma Parva section of the Mahabharata. In the Bhagavatam, they are described only briefly, like only as a summary. So what is described in the Bhagavatam from these instructions is on 1:9:25 to 29. So I will read here just 4 verses. So quote, Sutta Goswami said, Maharaja Yudhisthira, after hearing Bhismadeva speak in that appealing tone, asked him, in the presence of all the great rishis, about the essential principles of various religious duties. At Maharaja Yudhisthira's inquiry, Bhismadeva first defined all the classification of case and orders of life in terms of the individual qualifications, right? So he started speaking about Varnashrama. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment, right? Then he spoke about attachment and detachment of matter. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees both briefly and extensively. So he spoke about activities and duties, right? And then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. So while Bhismadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. So you see that, so that's the end of the quote. So you see that Bhismadeva, he was waiting for this moment. That's the moment recommended by yogis and so on to leave their bodies. And not only that, that was very auspicious situation, right? Krishna and the Pandavas, everyone there. So, uh, so, so then Bhismadeva started to prepare to go back to Godhead. And Bhishmadeva spoke on all these topics in the most difficult situation, right? In his deathbed, with his body pierced all over by arrows, right? So this happened by the will of Krishna, because Krishna wanted to use the situation to increase the glory of his devotee, right? However, after concluding these topics, according to the desire of the Lord, Bhishmadeva completely focused his attention on the Lord as Parthasarathi, right? The driver of Arjuna's chariot, with the reins and the whip in his hands, because that was the form he was seeing during the battle of Kuruksetra, right? So at this moment, he felt more fortunate than Arjuna, because being seated in the chariot, Arjuna could see only the back of the Lord, while he, right, because he was the enemy, right, he was in front, he could see the Lord from the front and thus appreciate his beauty fully. So Bhishmadeva was feeling very, very fortunate. So this is also a lesson for us, because during our lives, we may perform, so many different activities, but at the time of death, we should be capable of focusing our attention exclusively on Krishna, right? And the best way to guarantee that is to practice during our lives. If we are able to always remember Krishna during our lives, we will be surely be able to also remember him at the time of death. And these thoughts will bring us back to the spiritual world, right? So we should thus learn to connect the different activities we perform in our daily lives with Krishna, as he teaches in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And two especially beautiful verses in this passage are Srimad Bhagavatam 19:30 and 31. And these two verses, they describe the glory of Bhishmadeva leaving his body. So, okay, let's read just these two verses here. Quote, thereupon, that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings, and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men, stopped speaking, and being completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him four-handed, dressed in yellow garments, and glittered and shined, that glittered and shined. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved from all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all living beings while quitting his material bodies. Right? So, verses 32 to 42 of this chapter describe these beautiful prayers that Bhishmadeva offered to the Lord while he was leaving his body, right? So when Bhishmadeva finally returned home, back to Godhead, all the great personalities who were present there, they returned. They first they became silent, right, for some time, offering their final respects to these great souls. But then they sounded drums in honor. They started making a big noise, in honor of this great feat of Bhishmadeva. So even the demigods, they participated by offering flowers that fell from the sky. So after performing these funeral rites and glorifying Krishna, who was present there still, then the great sages, they returned to their respective places, right? So that's how Bhishmadeva passed away. So Bhishmadeva, he can be a difficult personality to understand, because on the one side, he was one of the 12 Mahajanas, right? One of the greatest authorities in spiritual sciences. He knew perfectly well all the moral principles, and he could perfectly instruct anyone in spiritual science, right? Apart from his knowledge, he was also a pure devotee of Krishna, and he also died in the most auspicious moment, right? In the presence of Krishna, the Pandavas, and many great personalities. So he had so many qualifications. But at the same time, when Draupadi was being, attacked in the assembly of the Kauravas, and she implored Bhishma for help, his mind went completely blank, right? Like it was an obvious situation, right? A chaste lady was being attacked. But although this was such a novel situation, he could not master the strength to protest, even verbally, right? He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything at all. He became confused, and he could not distinguish right and wrong. His mind became completely blank on this situation. So how is that? So the reason for this apparent contradiction is that at the time, like one of the reasons, there are other reasons, but one of the reasons is that at the time he was associating with Duryodhana, right? Duryodhana was maintaining him. So the Lord used this situation to show how such an association, like association with a materialistic person, can be dangerous, right? Krishna blocked the intelligence of Bhishma at the crucial moment to show, see, that's the result. That's what happens. So, also, the Lord desired Bhishma to fight on the opposite side during the battle of Kuruksetra. Why? To increase the glories of the Pandavas, and also to show that even the strongest warrior can't win if he fights against the Lord's devotees, right? So see, Bhishma, Karna, Drona, and many others, they were all powerful warriors. And but despite their qualifications, they were all defeated by the Pandavas, right? So Krishna was showing this point. You can't win fighting against Krishna's devotees. So the passing away of Bhismadeva was observed by Vaishnavas during the last 5 days of the month of Kartik, like the Bhisma Panchaka. And during these 5 days, we remember this pastime of Bhishmadeva. These 5 days of the Bhisma Panchaka, they symbolize complete surrender to the Lord, Atmanivedana. So it describes that Krishna becomes so pleased with the surrendering of Bhishmadeva that he agreed to give pure devotional service to anyone who observes these 5 days of Bhisma Panchaka by fasting and performing spiritual activities, right? So in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, it is said that if one is capable, one should observe fasting on the Bhisma Panchaka for the pleasure of the Lord. The fast should begin by remembering Bhismadeva on Ekadasi, on the day of Ekadasi, and it should end on Purnima, the day of the full moon, that is the last day of Kartik. So the Padma Purana says that one pleases the Lord and makes spiritual advancement by such austerities. So these 5 days, they are considered extremely auspicious to increase our devotion to Krishna, right? So these are the 5 days that we can remember Bhishmadeva and get the blessings of the Lord connected with him. So, okay, so then next topic is Yudhisthira rules the kingdom and the departure of Krishna, right? Because now Krishna is leaving, right? Now Yudhisthira is the king, everything is solved. Now Krishna is leaving. So after speaking to Bhishmadeva, Yudhisthira Maharaja, he returned to Hastinapur, right? Together with Krishna and the other Pandavas, and he accepted to be the king, and he became focused on performing his duties, right? Just like Bhishmadeva instructed, right? So the 10th chapter, right, now we are going to speak about the 10th chapter. So the 10th chapter starts with Saunaka Rishi inquiring about his rule, the rule of Yudhisthira. Because when a materialistic person becomes the king, it's understood that he will try to enjoy and expand his dominions, right? Because he will be inspired by some idea of false proprietorship. But Maharaja Yudhisthira, of course, he's a pure devotee. So therefore, it's clear that he is in control of his senses, right? So Saunaka is interested to hear about the reign of such a saintly king. So in verses 4 to 6, Sutta Goswami, he mentions a few symptoms of his rule, right? The rule of Yudhisthira. So he says there, quote, during the reign of Maharaja Yudhisthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season pay their tax quota to the king in profusion. Because of the kings having no enemy, the living entities were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold, right? So this is the description of the kingdom of Yudhisthira Maharaj. Krishna mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita, that whatever example a great person sets, common persons follow, right? So due to the example of the king of Yudhisthira Maharaj, people became pious. And due to this collective piety, all the natural events became regulated, right? And thus society became prosperous. So on the opposite, right, when people become excessively sinful, then there are material, natural disturbances like wars, pestilence, and so on. And the situation of the world becomes disturbed, right? So from this, we can see how not only the administrative capacity, but also the moral standards of a ruler are important, right? So in the highest sense, only a pure devotee can be a good ruler. And Maharaja Yudhisthira, of course, set the example, right? So that's an interesting point, right? How you can get good government. So Krishna was planning to leave for Dwarka after establishing the Pandavas as rulers, right? After the Battle of Kuruksetra. But he ended up staying for more time. Why? First, to deal with the crisis created by Aswatthama, right? We studied this last time. And then to bring Yudhisthira to Bhismadeva, right? That's what we studied now. But then and then he had to stay a few months more to pacify his relatives, please his sister Subhadra, right? Who was living in Hastinapura, of course, after she married Arjuna. So, to fulfill these different purposes, Krishna had to stay for more time. But finally, it came the time for the Lord to depart, right? So Yudhisthira, he had asked the Lord to stay for more time, and the Lord agreed. But now it was the time for the Lord to finally go, right? And this created a very emotional situation with all the devotees of Hastinapura extremely distressed, by the imminent separation from the Lord. And all Krishna's Leelas, right? That's a very important point to understand, to remember always, that all Krishna's Leelas, they are based on a dynamic of meeting and separation. And this makes the reciprocation of love between Krishna and his devotees increase unlimitedly, right? This meeting and separation, meeting and separation. So the cowherd boys, they stay with Krishna during the day, but they miss him during the night when he stays with the gopis, right? And then the gopis, they miss the Lord during the day when he brings the cows to the pastures, right? So it's always like that, right? Meeting and separation. So sometimes Krishna goes to Mathura to fight with Kansa and so on. So, like sometimes Ravana kidnaps Sita, Lord Chaitanya takes sannyas and goes to Jagannath Puri and so on, right? There are so many pastimes. So, in the absolute sense, there is no difference between meeting and separation from the Lord, because during separation, the Lord is also present in the form of his name and, one's remembrance of him, right? So the Lord is never away from his pure devotee, but there is this dynamic, right, of meeting and separation. So in fact, the connection with the Lord becomes stronger during the phase of separation because one's meditation on him becomes even stronger than when he's personally present, right? But still, the perspective of losing the Lord's personal association is unbearable for a pure devotee, right? So we can imagine the situation of the citizens of Hastinapura when the Lord was leaving. So then there is a quote here that's from Srimad Bhagavatam 110, 11 to 14. So quote, the intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation, for they had been intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him. So all their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. The female relatives, whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. So, such a beautiful quote, right? So many beautiful passages in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So then the rest of the chapter, it describes, this emotional moment, right, of the Lord's departure, right? The Pandavas followed the Lord on the road, and he had to stop and convince them to go back to their kingdoms, right? So these descriptions give us a taste of the sweet dealings between Krishna and his devotees, which will be explained like in more detail in the 10th canto. But by this sample, our minds can become attracted to the pastimes of the Lord, and if this attraction is properly nourished by the different descriptions that are offered, right, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can come to properly relish the descriptions of the 10th canto, right? And that's how the Srimad Bhagavatam gradually brings us closer to Krishna. It gives us a sample of Krishna's pastimes in the first canto. So we get a little bit of taste. And then the other 9 cantos, they help us to understand what we got. And then when, Bhagavatam gives us, really, the Krishna's pastimes in the 10th canto, then we are prepared to fully understand it, right? That's how it works. That's why we need to read Srimad Bhagavatam sequentially, like we are doing here. And now we have Krishna's entrance into Dwarka. So, in contrast with the ecstasy of separation of the inhabitants of Hastinapura, the inhabitants of Dwarka, they bloomed, right, with the ecstasy of meeting again the Lord after such a long separation. Because Krishna stayed a very long time in Hastinapura, right, taking care of the many duties that he had there. And now, finally, the Lord was returning to Dwarka, right? So as soon as they heard the sound of his conch shell, all the inhabitants ran towards the Lord, satisfying their long, cherished desire of being again with the Lord. So there is a lot of spiritual significance on these verses, these first verses of the chapter. So when it's described that the conch appeared to be reddened by the touch of the Lord's transcendental lips, for example, a reference is made to the fact that a devotee can exhibit all kinds of wonderful spiritual qualities due to his contact with Krishna. And this is something that we can see in practice, right? People change when they sincerely start practicing devotional service. Negative traits disappear, they gain new qualities and abilities, and even their physical appearance changes, right? So, and this is all due to the contact with the Lord. So, in the same way, material objects used in the service of Krishna, they become spiritualized, just like prasadam, like that is offered to Krishna, right? Bhoga that no, is offered to Krishna and becomes prasada. And this is something that Prabhupada mentions. Also, interesting quote here. The Lord is a quote, right? The Lord is our spirit, and matter is ignorance of this spiritual existence. Factually, there is nothing like matter in spiritual enlightenment. And this spiritual enlightenment takes place only by the contact of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. The Lord is present in every particle of all existence, and he can manifest his presence in anyone. By ardent love and devotional service to the Lord, or in other words, by spiritual contact with the Lord, everything becomes spiritually reddened, like the conch shell in the grip of the Lord. See, by contact of the Lord, everything is transformed, just like this conch shell that he's holding. And the Paramahansa, or the supreme intelligent person, plays the role of the ducking swan in the water of spiritual bliss, eternally decorated by the lotus flower of the Lord's feet. Right? So beautiful, right? Prabhupada speaks. So, this is the end of the quote. So, it is customary in Vedic culture that when you go to see someone, or especially a great person, you bring some present, right? So the inhabitants of Dwarka, of course, they followed this etiquette. So they didn't go to see the Lord with empty hands. They brought many valuable offerings to the Lord. But these offerings, they are described as being like offering a lamp to the sun, right? Because the sun is the source of heat and light for the whole universe. And thus, the sun has nothing to benefit from a small lamp offered, right, by the worshiper. So similarly, the Lord is the source of everything and the possessor of everything. And thus, he doesn't have anything to gain from any material offering, right? No, everything comes from him. So the offering serves, however, as a vessel for our devotion to the Lord. The offering itself is nothing, is not so important, but the devotion to the Lord is important, right? Like the devotion, the love that is carried by this offering, like it satisfies the Lord and it increases our relationship with Him. And Prabhupada mentions that therefore any presentation, however valuable it may be, is not needed by him, right? The Lord doesn't need anything. But still, because he is the well-wisher for one and all, he accepts from everyone everything that is offered to him in pure devotional service. It is not that he is in want for such things, because things are themselves generated from his energy, right? He doesn't need anything, but he accepts the devotion. And then from verses 6 to 10, the citizens of Dwarka, they offer prayers to the Lord. And here I'm just going to make a few points because, this is, the verses and the comments, they are, quite extensive. So I'm just going to make a few points here. So first point, that the Lord is transcendental to the influence of material time, right? He is the predominator and we are the predominated, right? The Lord is the boss. So the Lord is thus the shelter for all who aspire the ultimate goal, right? We need to take shelter of the Lord. And of course, the Lord is worshipped by all demigods and all important personalities. So second point is that the Lord is the well-wisher of everyone. So when we follow the instructions that he gives, in the scriptures, from the instructions that we receive from other devotees and the spiritual master, then we become successful in all spheres of life, because these instructions are for our ultimate good. Third point is that our relationship with the Lord is eternal, and this relationship can neither be broken or nor destroyed, right? And this human form is our chance of reviving this relationship. And then four, that even the demigods, they rarely have the opportunity to see the Lord. But the inhabitants of Dwarka, they can constantly see him face to face. Why? Due to their purity and love. And this is the original state of the soul, right? Of service to Krishna. And this can be unveiled only by the practice of devotional service. And then next, that the opposite of Krishna is Maya, right? Maya means illusion. So without him, our knowledge is covered by illusion. So we need to always keep ourselves in the presence of Krishna. And last point, that we are molecular parts of the whole spirit. We are like atoms of spirit, right? And we are separated from the Lord by this artificial covering of Maya, right? The illusory energy. So when this covering, when this curtain is removed, then we can see the Lord face to face, and all the miseries of life, they end. And the opulence of Dwarka is an example of how a society can become prosperous by the practice of Krishna consciousness, right? And the use of the gifts of nature. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that when people have the choice, they prefer to live in beautiful areas, right, with nature, right? Like if you ask anyone, do you want to live in an apartment or you want to live in a house, with a big garden and so on? Everyone wants to live, right, in nature. But in modern society, this is available only to the rich, right? The rich people, they get the best areas. Poor people, they are forced to live in, congested areas of the city, like that are just hellish, right? In Dwarka, however, the whole city was beautiful, right? So everyone were living in a beautiful area. So then another quote from Prabhupada. It is understood that the whole Dhamma, or residential quarter, was surrounded by such gardens and parks with reservoirs of water where lotuses grew. It is understood that all the people depended on nature's gifts of fruits and flowers, without industrial enterprises promoting filthy huts and slums for residential quarters. Advancement of civilization is estimated not on the growth of mills and factories to deteriorate the finer instincts of the human being, but on developing the potent spiritual instincts of human beings and giving them a chance to go back to Godhead. So see, Prabhupada makes this point that advancement of civilization is not economic growth. Advancement of civilization is how people become Krishna conscious and how much they advance in spiritual life, right? So good point. So not only was Dwarka extraordinarily beautiful, but the inhabitants, they decorated the whole city, right, for the coming of Krishna with natural ingredients like planting trees, mango leaves, pots with water and grains, fruits, flowers, and so on. Nowadays, it's just paper and plastic, right? But at that time, it was really beautiful things. And apart from decoration, it's described that Brahmanas, they came forth to receive the Lord alongside elephants, right? Men blowing conch shells and musical horns and so on, right? Vedic hymns that were chanted, all classes of people, they offered their respect. So we can just imagine how gorgeous it was, this reception of Krishna. And there are more interesting points here. So, verse 19 of this chapter, right? It's quite interesting. This verse, it mentions that many hundreds of well-known prostitutes, they began to proceed in various vehicles. So then one may question how prostitutes they are present in Dwaraka, no, the city of the Lord. So there are several points to understand here. So the first point is that these were not like prostitutes in the modern term, but they were more like courtesans. They were unmarried girls who would make a career, by chanting, dancing, entertaining. And they are described as prostitutes because in the course of their activities, they would have affairs with different men. There were like free women. So they were more like apsaras, like in the celestial planets. Apsaras, they are also like that, right? One man, then another man, then another man. So that's why, they are described using this word prostitute, just because they were like, they had affairs with many men instead of having a husband. So on the positive side, however, these ladies, they were all devotees and they were very eager to meet the Lord. They had a great devotion for Krishna, right? And this shows how persons in, all ways of life, they can be purified by the process of devotional service, right? And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he brings the topic closer to our reality by making the point that activities like drinking and prostitution, they are present in every society, right? And they are very difficult to eradicate. So the real process of reformation is to enlighten people in Krishna consciousness, right? And this is something that Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita 9:32, that all classes of people, they can attain perfection if they take shelter of devotional service, right? Including, meat eaters, drunkards, prostitutes, and so on, right? So similarly, the Lord was also greeted by dramatists, artists, dancers, singers, historians, genealogists, and so on. So many different types of professionals, right? We can say. So this shows that all their professions, they were also present in Dwarka. But they were all devotees, and their activities, they were centered around the activities of the Lord. So in his purport, Prabhupada makes the point that the presence of such devotees, artists, is important for the spiritual enlightenment of the common man. Right? If everyone is a pure devotee in the society, okay, we just do kirtan, read Srimad Bhagavatam, and Haribo. Everyone goes back to Godhead. But when not everyone is a pure devotee, then you need to have all these different arts connected with Krishna to attract all these people and make them, hear about Krishna. So the presence of these devotee artists, it's important for the spiritual enlightenment of the common man by presenting knowledge from the Vedic literature in ways that are simple and capable of attracting the less enlightened classes of the population, let's say like that, right? So not everyone will come for a philosophical discussion, but everyone can come for a theatrical performance or for a movie or something like that, right? So these professions, they also have application in Krishna consciousness. So, and then a little later, there is also another interesting point that it's mentioned that the Lord reciprocated the greetings of all, right? Of everyone, without exceptions, showing that he's attentive to all kinds of devotees and that he is equally affectionate to everyone, right? So no one who approaches the Lord sincerely is ever rejected or, prevented from, going to the spiritual world. It's just up to us to accept his association or not. It's available for everyone. It's just a personal choice if I want or not. That's the point, right? And then there is a quote here, 1, 11, 21, and 22. So it says that Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached then and offered due honor and respect to each and every one of the friends, relatives, citizens, and all others who came to receive and welcome him. The Almighty Lord greeted everyone present by bowing his head, exchanging greetings, embracing, shaking hands, looking and smiling, giving assurances, and awarding benedictions, even to the lowest in rank. right? Unquote. So these inscriptions, they give us a glimpse of life in the spiritual world. Because due to the influence of false ego, the soul is ready to accept any material identity at all, right? From a demigod to a dog or a hog, or even a tree, right? Any position except his eternal position as a servant of the Lord. So these descriptions, they are included in the Srimad Bhagavatam to help us become attracted to the eternal reality of the spiritual world, which is centered around these sweet exchanges of love with Krishna, right? So the more we become attracted to these descriptions, the more our attraction to the temporary and illusory world of matter will be slackened, right? Will be reduced, right? And then we have the next one, last topic for today. Krishna is greeted by his queens, right? Of course, the queens are very happy to see Krishna. So, in the last verses of this chapter, from 30 to 39, we have a glimpse of the dealings of the Lord with his queens, right? So we had dealings with the Lord with the different subjects, friends, and so on, and now dealings of the Lord with his queens. So the point is that in material life, like a man with many wives is not something very nice, right? Because a common man is not capable of properly taking care or of maintaining more than one woman, right? If a man has many wives, means that most of them will be neglected, right? And even in Srimad Bhagavatam, we have examples of that. So this, however, is not the case of Krishna, of course. Although Krishna has 16,108 wives, each one lives in an extremely opulent palace, right? She has servants and all facilities. And more than that, the Lord expands himself to be with each and every queen simultaneously, right? At the same time, he's with every queen. So each of the queens feels that she's the most loved because the Lord is always with her, right? Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead because he's capable of giving shelter to an unlimited number of devotees. So like unlimited number of devotees in many types of relationships. So every man and woman in this material world tries to imitate, right? Of course, but we are not very good at it, right? We don't know how to reciprocate, how to build relationships like Krishna can do. So by hearing about the sweet pastimes of Krishna and his queens, we can become gradually attracted to the reality of the spiritual world and gradually forget about this material romanticism that is, illusory in nature. And there is a quote here, beautiful quote, 1:11:30 to 33. So, thereafter, the Lord entered his palaces, and which were perfect to the fullest extent. His wives lived in them, and they numbered over 16,000. The queens of the Lord Sri Krishna rejoiced within their minds to see their husband home after a long period abroad. The queens got up at once from their seats and meditations, and as was socially customary, they covered their faces shyly and looked up about coyly, right? So the insuperable ecstasy was so strong that the queens who were shy first embraced the Lord in the innermost recess of their hearts. Then they embraced him visually, and then they sent their sons to embrace him, which is equal to personally embracing. But, O chief amongst the Brigos, though they tried to restrain their feelings, they inadvertently shed tears. Although Lord Sri Krishna was constantly by their sides, as well as exclusively alone, his feet appeared to them to be nearer and nearer. The goddess of fortune, although by nature always restless and moving, could not quit the Lord's feet. So, what woman can be detached from those feet? having once taken shelter of them, right? So beautiful, right? So although the loving pastimes of the Lord, they may seem similar to like mundane loving affairs, they're completely different in nature. So because mundane relationships, they are based on lust, right? On the idea of using another person as an instrument to satisfy our desires. But the loving pastimes of the Lord, on the other hand, they are completely different. They are based on pure love. So the queens, they have the purest desire to satisfy the Lord. And he's able to reciprocate their love without becoming agitated. So it's mentioned that although the queens, beautiful smiles and furtive glances were all spotless and exciting, and although they would conquer Cupid himself by making him give up his bow in frustration, and although even the tolerant Shiva could fall victim to them, still, despite all their magical feats and attractions, they could not agitate the senses of the Lord. Right? So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna compares the material world with an inverted tree, right? Like a tree reflected on a lake. Imagine you have a tree, you have a lake in front of the tree, so you see this reflection of the tree in the lake. So although the reflection appears to be identical to the original, there is a difference. The reflection is upside down, right? So in the same way, everything that exists here is a reflection of things that exist in the spiritual world. But here, everything is inverted. But so the pure love that exists in the loving relationships with the Lord, which is the highest expression of rasa in the spiritual world, when reflected in the material energy, it becomes lust, right? Which is the prime cause of our conditioning. So the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, they gradually elevate our understanding, teaching us to distinguish this spiritual love from mundane lust. It teaches us the difference. Uh, in this way, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it gradually gives us the qualification to later understand these intimate pastimes of the Lord. Because we can't understand these pastimes of Krishna and the gopis who are so pure if we don't understand this difference between spiritual love and material lust. And this we learn by reading the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then when we come to the 10th canto, then we can understand, this ultimate expression of love in these intimate pastimes of Krishna. So, okay, so that's it for today. Today was a little long. I hope it was not boring. So if you have any questions or comments or whatever, we can discuss now a little bit more. So, okay, so let me go back to the, okay, let me change the view. Ah, oh, okay, now everyone is here. Hare Krishna. Okay, my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so if anyone has questions, comments, is your chance now. Oops. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, my obeisances. All glories to Srila
This is
Prabhupada.
actually humble Prabhu. So excellent session again, Prabhu. Thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So
Yes.
in a verse, Prabhupada says that uh, in Rantideva, I mean, regarding holy places.
Mm-hmm.
So he says that we should not just go visit to Tirthas, worship the Lord, they have darshan and come back. He says that you need to search out for the pure devotees, okay, and ask questions, get enlightened, and that is the purpose of the dham visit. Otherwise, it's like a waste of time. So, but
Yes.
generally, when we go to yatra, we also do the same. Like we go for darshan, take a bath, pray for the Lord, and come back. So, can you comment on this, Prabhu? So, how to implement that part of approaching, searching out pure devotees, and getting instructions from them, and trying to
Yes.
practically apply?
Yeah, this is like spiritual tourism, right? We go to Vrindavan. Okay, this is this temple, this is this temple. Okay, and we go like 2 days. We visit all the temples. We run around the city, right? We take prasada. We give donation to the deities, and that's all, right? We go back home, and we don't remember much. So this is like spiritual tourism. Of course, it's still good. There is some benefit on it, but that's not the real benefit of visiting the holy places. The real benefit is to get in contact with pure devotees who can really show the Dham, really show the holy places to us, like the spiritual holy place, not just the stones. So that's the point that is made in the scriptures. That's the real benefit of visiting the holy place, to associate with pure devotees who are there.
But how can we know who are pure devotees, Prabhu? Because mostly in dhams, frankly speaking, we'll get all people who are very enthusiastic about money. But
Yeah, that's the point, right? Because unfortunately, we have this characteristics because the holy dhammas, they don't attract only pure devotees, they attract also materialistic people who want to go there to make a living. And of course, it's a kind of auspicious place for that because so many pilgrims, very humble, going there, prepared to give some donation. So if someone, pretends to be a sadhu, he can make a nice living out of this. But these are not all. There are many pure devotees who really go there to take shelter. So if a person has some kind of guide, has some devotee who knows the place, who knows how to recognize pure devotees, then he can show to him the true Dhammavasis, the true pure devotees living there in the holy place. It's not really recommended to go alone to Vrindavan, to other different holy places. It's better to go as part of some group with some guide, with some experienced devotee who can really who understands and can really show things to us. That's the best.
okay, Prabhu. And one more thing, Prabhu, in that purport, Prabhu, Prabhupada says that Duryodhana, there is no need of war in a sense. Duryodhana is ruling well. Means how we can understand this statement? Duryodhana is a very wicked person, so how can he rule well, Prabhu?
Yeah, he materially speaking, he's ruling. He's not doing any seriously uh uh seriously bad thing in the management. Materially speaking, he's managing, okay, he's collecting taxes, he's organizing the army, he's protecting the kingdom. He's doing the basic duties. But the problem is that, like you said, he's a wicked person. He's not really a follower of Dharma. So that's why Krishna wants to put Yudhisthira Maharaja in the place. Prabhupada is just actually on this point, he's kind of speaking from the point of view of Yudhisthira Maharaja. He's kind of explaining the way Yudhisthira Maharaja, he was seeing things. Not exactly, reality, but the way Yudhisthira Maharaja was thinking. And that's how Yudhisthira Maharaja was thinking, that, what was the need of taking Duryodhana out? He was doing okay, he was protecting people. So what was the need of making this war and killing so many people just for me to become the king? Would be better to just leave Duryodhana. That's what Yudhisthira was thinking. But you see but you can see that Krishna didn't really agree with this idea, right? He preferred to take out Duryodhana and put Yudhisthira.
Okay, Prabhu. And one more thing, Prabhu, regarding these prostitutes.
Yes.
So, how can one person continue the devotional service at the same time, engage in a profession like that, Prabhu? Because it's directly breaking the regulative principle.
That's what most of us do nowadays. There's no surprise. So many marriages and divorces. Everyone, one man, another man, one lady, another lady. It's the same thing. We are all doing the same thing. So there is no surprise. We are devotees, they are devotees. What to do?
But it's a profession, it's a kind of a day in, day out activity, right, Prabhu?
No, like I said, they were not prostitutes in the same way that we have prostitutes nowadays. They were not selling their bodies. They were just having affairs with different men. They were free women. This man, that man, and so on. That's all. And it's just like nowadays. Nowadays, almost everyone does like that. One boyfriend, another boyfriend, one girlfriend, another girlfriend, right? Marriage, divorce, same thing.
Mhm.
That's what that's what we all do nowadays. What you do? We are still Christians, still not rejecting us. Like fortunately,
Mhm. Okay, in the 24 Guru section, the prostitute Pingala also, she when she didn't get any client, right? She kept on thinking, and she became a devotee to the Lord, right, Prabhu?
Pingala seem to be more like a regular prostitute, like in the modern sense. But these ladies that are described here in Dwarka, they are different. They are like not like that.
Okay, okay. And my final question, Prabhu, in that the repentance of Yudhisthira Maharaj, their Prabhupada writes, pure devotee always sees Lord within oneself. Means he always sees the Lord within oneself.
Yes.
Generally, as devotees, we tend to see Lord in deities or devotional service or sadhu seva, sangha and all these things. But how, as a practice, can we implement that always seeing the Lord and contemplating on Paramatma Prabhu? Like, should we think that He's in my heart, or that how to get that conception
Mhm.
of always seeing the Lord within heart?
Yes, there are two ways of seeing the Lord all the time. For one way is to see the Lord everywhere, and that's what Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, that I'm the light of the sun and the moon, I'm the taste of water, and so on. So by
Mhm.
understanding and practicing these descriptions of the Bhagavad Gita, we can already see the Lord everywhere, and that's the easiest way. And then there is another way, is that when a devotee literally sees the personal form of the Lord everywhere, because the Lord is everywhere and He's also inside the heart. There is
Mhm.
not a place in the world where the Lord is not, right? Paramatma is everywhere. So, on a certain level, a person can literally see the form of the Lord everywhere. And this is very advanced, of course.
In everywhere in through His energies, you mean, Prabhu,
No,
or
personally, he can see
in
the personal
person?
form. Paramatma is not just energy, he has a form and he's everywhere.
Mhm.
So, on a certain level, one can see Paramatma, the form of Paramatma, literally everywhere. But this is very high, of course.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Prabhu,
Thank
for
you
your
very much. Hare
insights.
Krishna.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
So, okay. So, anyone else?
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Yes, please accept my humble obeisances and
My
thank you for
obeisances.
this nectarful lecture. I had a few questions. So one of them, the first one I'd like to begin with is like when we are trying to understand the activities of the Lord, what is the baseline or bounding factor that makes them understandable? For example, when
Mm,
the Lord, if the Lord may do anything that is considered mundanely evil,
mm,
the question can be straight out like thrown out of the window, as the Lord is absolute, hence his activities are absolute and they are all good. But
mm,
this doesn't seem an explaining factor, especially
mm,
when even the scriptures and devotees tend to justify the activities of the Lord. So is there
mhm.
a bounding factor in understanding?
The point is that, like, what like the way many people study most people study the Shastras nowadays is incorrect by definition. They can't, and because they are studying the Shastras by an incorrect process, they can't understand the Shastras. They misunderstand almost everything. That's first aspect. Why? Because the way most people study the Shastra, and this includes even us, like ISKCON devotees, what we do, we go to the library and we buy a book by God knows who, right? And we just read the book. Oh, such and such Purana. Oh, such and such Upanishad. Oh, now I'm going to understand everything. So we buy this book. God knows who wrote this book, who translated, who wrote the commentary or whatever. And we expect to understand the scriptures like this. Like, like someone, watching videos on YouTube. Like this is called ascending process. This process is not recommended. The way we are supposed to receive transcendental knowledge is by the descending process, by the authorized acharyas, right? So we know we read books from Srila Prabhupada, read books from our spiritual master, or maybe from other spiritual masters that we know are authorized. We hear from different devotees who are in the disciplic succession and so on. And this way we get authorized knowledge. This way we get the correct understanding of the philosophy, right? And then we can really start understanding things because, it's not easy to understand the scriptures. It's very, very easy to misinterpret, especially when we deal with Sanskrit verses. There are not many people in the world that can properly understand Sanskrit verses, and this includes most scholars. Most scholars, they're just like children. They just learn the ABCD and they expect to understand Shakespeare. It doesn't work. To properly understand Sanskrit, not only one needs to understand the language, okay, that's one thing, but more important than that, one needs to understand the conclusions of the text. Without understanding the conclusions of the text, even the greatest scholar can't really understand what he's reading. And the conclusions of the text we get from the acharyas. Who is the acharya for us? Who is the prominent acharya for us? Prabhupada. So we can get the conclusions of the scriptures by studying the books of Prabhupada. But for this, we need to accept his conclusions. Prabhupada writes in a quite clear way. It's not so easy to misunderstand him. Anyone can understand his books. But the point is, if we accept or not the conclusions. And that's a mistake that many devotees make. They don't accept the conclusions of Prabhupada. And no, I don't think Prabhupada is really correct on this point. And they look for other opinions and they start going around everywhere, reading all kinds of books, speaking to all kinds of people, collecting different opinions. And what happens just become, they say in Russian, they say kasha, right? It becomes a porridge in their heads. They just have, so much information and they can't really figure out much. And of course, when we go to normal people, right? Like non-devotees or people from different groups and so on, this is even more acute, right? Most people, they don't really have a spiritual authority. They are just hearing, this book, that book, and so on, these people, that person, and they just get these different interpretations, this different disconnected information, and they try to figure out, but they can't also really understand very well, and they just become very confused about everything. And people put so much artificial and incorrect meanings in the pastimes that are not really there originally. They try to interpret, what was Krishna's intention when he did that? How you know? And then people get all this information. Oh, Krishna is so evil. Oh, Karna, poor Karna. My God, Karna was a saint. They were so injustice. Oh, Krishna is so cruel with Karna. Now they think that Karna is the hero of Mahabharata, and so on. And what to do, because that's not the process. And then how you correct that, how you can make people understand, is very difficult if you debate point by point, because then there will be so many misconceptions that it will be practically impossible to, discuss everything. What we need to do is to convince them of the central points, that you need to study the Shastras from a self-realized person. And then maybe they can study, they can, if they can accept these points, then they may start, reading books of Prabhupada, hearing from some spiritual master. And in this way, they may start understanding. And that's how it works. Otherwise, it's very difficult, it's practically impossible.
Yes, Prabhu. You made one point of that accepting that what Prabhupada has written we have to accept. So say someone is saying some particular topic or something, and we try to understand it by superior authority, but all the what we understand is a correct authority. All the points they are making, it is not seeming acceptable to us. Then what do we do if this happens?
When we can't accept the point?
Yes.
What I do and what I recommend is that you should have a car park inside your brain. Sometimes in meetings, in courses, and so on, we have this concept of car park. So we are having some meeting, right? We're discussing different things, and so many ideas start to appear during the meeting. So to keep focus on the important topics, what we do? we can have a board and we start writing, okay, this point, this point, this point, this point, and we start writing now a list of points to be discussed later, because these are not important points, these are secondary points. So we discuss the important things, and then in the end we can go to the car park and take all the secondary points and try to understand them, right? So when we are reading Prabhupada's books, we can do like this. We can have a car park inside our brains. So okay, we are trying to understand the main topics. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, my relationship with Krishna, how to go back to Godhead and so on. And then in the meantime, many things may appear that may sound a little difficult for us. Okay, women less intelligent, men didn't go to the moon, and and so on, so forth. And this we can just put in the car park. Okay, later I will try to understand this. For now, I'm just going to focus on the important things. You put in the car park, you leave this for later. You don't need to think about this now. And so we first understand the most important things, and then gradually, as we progress in spiritual life, we can find, the right people, and we can gradually understand these other points, the secondary points also. I believe this is a good strategy, right? First focus on the important things, put the secondary things we can't understand or can't accept in the car park. Later we may go back and, try to understand these points.
Okay, bro. Thank you very much. I have already taken too much time, but I'll end off with just one question, last one. That you said that it is that the materials, whatever objects we give to the Lord, for example, bhoga or anything, these are not desired by the Lord. Like he doesn't need them because they are generated from him. What he accepts is our love for with attached with them,
Yes.
right? So since he doesn't need them because they are generated by them, rather he accepts the love that comes along with it. So the love that comes along with it isn't generated by him, like directly
Yes.
emanating from him.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine you are a millionaire, right? Or billionaire or trillionaire, wherever. So you have, billions and billions of dollars, right? You are walking the street, you see, I don't know, $10 or 500 rupees on the ground. You don't pick it up, right? Because it's insignificant for you, right? You just, okay, whatever. And you just walk, right? It's not interesting for you. It doesn't have any value for you because you are a billionaire. But if your son buys you some, I don't know, some book or some watch or some, small present, and he gives to you with, love, then you become very pleased, right? Then is best present, right? It may have cost the same $10 or 500 rupees, but because it comes from your son and comes with his love, then it becomes a very valuable thing. So it's something like this for Krishna. Like Krishna is is the possessor of everything. So nothing is like desirable for him because he already has everything. But when a devotee offers something to him, even the most insignificant thing with love, then Krishna is so pleased. So that's how it works, because the point is not the offering, the point is the love. The offering is just like a vehicle for this love, right?
But like my the point that I didn't understand was that since Krishna is the source of everything, so the love also must have source in him, but it doesn't have exactly source in him because it is like if it did, then it would have been indifferent to him.
No, love, everything comes from Krishna. Of course, love also comes from Krishna. But Krishna expands himself in so many forms, and we are also part of Krishna's expansions, like we are also separated expansions from Krishna. And this fact that we are all individuals, they create relationship. And that's the point. Relationship is what is interesting for Krishna. Objects, he's not interested because it's just his energy. But relationships is something interesting for Krishna. That's something that he wants to gain. You understand? So it's like that. Krishna is not interested in the offering. The offering is just a vehicle. What he's interested is in the relationship, is in our love. right? And that's what is transmitted through this vehicle of the offering, and that's what Krishna desires.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Then there is also something here on the chat. Krishna Nangish is asking that. Thank you so much. Very interesting lecture. It was especially interesting to know that when Bhishma was in such a difficult position, lying on a bed of arrows, it was Krishna's plan. He wanted to show the strength of Bhishma's devotion and his wisdom. It was very unusual, right? Yeah, interesting, right? So Krishna uses this situation to glorify his devotee, right? So he makes his devotee a great hero on the eyes of all other people. And these situations, they are created by Krishna. Krishna creates the situation, and he gives the strength, the spiritual strength for his devotee to surpass this situation. And in this way, his devotee becomes a great hero. Like, and we should not think that it was easy for Prahlada Maharaja to be thrown into the under the elephants or in the boiling oil, or for Arjuna to have to fight with all these powerful generals, or for Abhimanyu to be, closed inside the Chakravyuha, understand that he will not leave that place alive, but still he had to fight to save King Yudhisthira, and so on. So we should not underestimate this thing that they were all transcendental, all poor devotees. No, there was no danger. No, it was not the way they were seeing it. It was a dangerous situation. It was a difficult position, but because Krishna was giving them strength, then they could pass, all these tests, and in this way they became all great heroes. So Krishna uses these situations to glorify his devotee, and that's why 5,000 years ago we are still remembering Bhismadeva and Arjuna and Abhimanyu and so on, right? And not only us, even in the celestial planets, demigods are glorifying them. Okay. Uh, okay, so anything more? Otherwise, we can finish. Today we are a little over time already. Very long meeting, but I hope it was interesting. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Hope to see you again next week. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So stop.